Hello, I'm Dr. Rostenberg, and I want to personally thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. Stay tuned at the end of the video, and I will give my recipe for your healing process. Now, I wish we could achieve our results with just diet and lifestyle alone, but supplements really do make the difference. And to help you with that, you'll have an opportunity to order supplements at a discounted rate. We'll see you then. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this video with you. It's taken me quite a bit of research and work to get the data together and to kind of understand this process that I'm going to share with you tonight. So you're going to be some of the first people, whether you're a doctor, a student, or just a mother or father, or out there trying to figure out how to get healthy, you're going to be some of the first people to ever hear about the Tryptophan Steal. To my knowledge, this hasn't been fully understood or articulated yet, and I hope this video helps to shed light on this problem, because it is a real issue that people face, as you will see. So as I go through the video today, remember that if you want to learn more about this subject and anything else I have videos on, you go to my blog, beyondmthfr.com. You'll find great articles there that give you kind of some more background information than what I share in the videos. And of course, check Facebook's MTHFR support page. There's a lot of good information up there, and I always post this information there as well. So tonight we're going to talk about the Tryptophan Steal, the hidden reasons stress makes us depressed. That's what this is all about. Many of you have seen my previous video on depression and methylation, and certainly any discussion of depression has to incorporate the understanding and the science of methylation, because it is such a fundamental process and it has a huge impact on whether or not we are depressed. And based on the research from that previous video, the BH4 cycle is the keystone in determining how fast we make serotonin and how fast we make dopamine. So the BH4 cycle is very dependent on adequate levels of folate in our body, in our diet, in our brain. So that's a big connection between methylation and depression. But there's more to the subject of depression than just taking B vitamins and making sure you're making enough BH4 to make your neurotransmitters. And we're not really going to get into these genes over here tonight, but certainly those of you who have followed me on others' videos and seen my articles, we talk a lot about these other pathways. But for tonight, we're going to focus on tryptophan. Over the past few months, a lot of my attention and time has been spent on this topic because we've been doing so many organic acid tests with patients, and we keep seeing the same patterns over and over. So we're always looking for new things that help us take better care of patients. And what you're looking at here is kind of a simplified drawing, and I want to point out there's really two pathways here. There's a feel-good pathway where tryptophan is used to make 5-HTP, serotonin, and then melatonin. That does make us feel good when that's working well. And then we have the kynurenine pathway, which I don't expect most people to know or even say, but the kynurenine pathway is dedicated to making tryptophan be converted into NAD, which is a byproduct or downstream product of vitamin B3. It's turning it into ATP and CO2. So this is really an energy generation pathway. And you should know that about 96% of all tryptophan under normal conditions goes down here. Most of our tryptophan is burned for energy, in other words. And only about 1 to 2% of it is saved to make us feel good, to make our serotonin and melatonin work. So keep that in mind. This isn't a balanced pathway. By far, most of the tryptophan goes into the kynurenine pathway anyway. And so we'll give a little more background on this later, but you can see that what happens is that inflammation, this is tumor necrosis factor alpha, this is interferon, things that inflammatory molecules from the immune system speed up the IDO enzyme, okay? And stress in the form of cortisol and hypoglycemia in the form of glucagon, both cortisol and glucagon, stress and hypoglycemia will speed up the TDO enzyme. So here we have the tryptophan steal. You can see how it gets stolen, and these are the criminals that are responsible: inflammation, cortisol, and glucagon. We'll come back to this in a minute. I want to point out that, you know, we don't actually make tryptophan anywhere inside of our bodies. I mean, this is important to realize. We do not make tryptophan anywhere in our body. It must come from the diet, or it must come from the synthesis of tryptophan in our gut, which our healthy gut bacteria allow us to do. In other words, we're either going to eat tryptophan in our food, or our gut bacteria is going to poop it out for us. If that doesn't happen, our tryptophan levels do not sustain themselves. They will drop, and that will lead us down the road of depression. And so we now know that antibiotics increase depression and anxiety. This is new science. It's 2015, about a year ago, November. And they found that if you've had 5 rounds, greater than 5 rounds of penicillin in your lifetime, okay? I meet people who've had 50 or 100 rounds of antibiotics on a weekly basis. This study just said if you had more than 5 rounds in your lifetime, that your risk for depression and anxiety was increased by 50%. Okay? This is serious stuff. When we start to disrupt the gut bacteria, we have changes in the brain. Now, another new study from pretty recent, 2014, looking at pesticides. This is stuff that humankind has never used in quantities like this before. We have no idea what the long-term effects are. You know, it still is buyer beware. It still is caveat emptor out there for everybody. And these pesticides are causing depression. So this is not even to talk about the main one, you know, Roundup. This is just other pesticides. They're associated with anywhere from a 10 to 90% increase in depression. Every different kind of insecticide or pesticide or herbicide that they tested caused some increase in depression. We need to understand why this happens, and well, you know, we're going to talk about that in a second. Roundup. You know, those of you who are watching this video are probably aware that Monsanto this past week or two was purchased for $66 billion by a German company called Bayer. And Bayer makes aspirin, and they make some other drugs. And they're also involved in the agriculture industry. So now, you know, we have now a giant company that swallowed another giant company, and they control, you know, some massive percentage of our food and drugs. So again, it's buyer beware, guys. We got to educate ourselves. So that's, you know, that's why you're watching this video. But the Roundup product produced by Monsanto that has glyphosate in it was recently patented back in 2002. Here's the web page. You can look at the Google patent result as an antibiotic. So not only are we spraying herbicides and pesticides on our food, apparently by the billions of pounds we are spraying antibiotics on our food. I mean, it's no wonder people are so sick these days. Just to remind everybody, this is how gut bacteria and plants make what are called aromatic amino acids. There's only 3 aromatic amino acids: tyrosine, phenylalanine, and tryptophan. Most of you watching this video have heard of those before. So I just mentioned to you how tryptophan is not made inside of our body. We have no capacity as humans to synthesize this amino acid, or actually any of these amino acids. We can in no way, shape, or form make an aromatic amino acid inside our body. We are completely dependent on a healthy gut environment or a diet where our gut is able to absorb the protein. We're dependent on that to make our neurotransmitters. So if depression is a neurotransmitter related problem, which it is, because they give you drugs that try to, you know, manage neurotransmitters, we know that depression is neurotransmitter related, and we know that Roundup and GMO foods are soaked in, they contain a toxin that stops the bacteria from being able to make these amino acids. And this is how it kills weeds. I mean, this is one of the ways that Roundup kills a living organism is that it totally shuts off the organism's ability to make these amino acids. Well, we need this also. So when we eat Roundup and GMO foods, we're actually taking in a poison in our gut that's killing our bacteria that lower the levels of these amino acids. And that's where a lot of the problems with depression come from. I used to have thank goodness I'm a little bit older and I'm not living in truly the age of GMOs. I ate poorly in the past as a teenager and young person, but luckily most of it wasn't GMO at the time. I mean, it's just getting worse now. And so now we have data, again, very recent from 2015, that shows they did a study on one round of antibiotics, guys, one 5-day, 3-day, 7-day Z-Pack. And they found that it takes months. It takes months for that gut to go back to the way it was. It doesn't take a couple of weeks. Now, they didn't do any of the restorative things that, people in the natural medicine world know about, helping to restore gut health and taking probiotics. They just looked at the gut before and after antibiotics, and it took months and months, about a year, from the antibiotic exposure, and they could still see changes in the makeup. So it's not a joke. We don't want to take more antibiotics than is necessary, and now, MRSA is kind of getting out of control in our hospitals and healthcare system because of our abuse of antibiotics. I mean, there are herbs that work just as well, if not far better, than even the strongest antibiotic. They just can't be patented, and prices can't be gouged as easily, I guess. So the reason I'm sharing all this with you about gut, when we're talking about the Tryptophan Steal and we're talking about depression, is that your gut and your brain are absolutely tightly connected. And what goes on in the gut affects the brain. Here's a study from a few years ago. It basically said that anything that causes leaky gut, so any of those GMO foods, pesticide-laden foods, fast foods, high stress, lots of different factors go into this, but anybody with a leaky gut is leaking in bacteria that go into the bloodstream that trigger the brain to increase stress hormones. I mean, that's what's happening here. So gut microbes alter behavior and brain chemistry. It's not my opinion, it's just the science. So when we have dead bacteria leaking into our body, we call those lipopolysaccharides. It causes depression. Yes, a leaky gut causes depression. And part of that is from the loss of the healthy bacteria that are supposed to poop out our antidepressants, and part of that is because our gut just gets so inflamed. And so here's another picture I like to use because it's so simple, it's elegantly simple, that when you have a leaky gut, your immune system gets Th1 dominant, and it gets all these nasty chemicals into the bloodstream that cross the blood-brain barrier, and they go into your brain and they irritate your brain. And here you can see tryptophan getting sucked over and just turned into quinolinic acid, which activates glutamate, which creates neurotoxicity, and it just irritates the brain and changes our potential, and it brings us down. And so we want to, prevent that. And that's what this video is going to show you how to do. So gut inflammation causes brain inflammation, and the Tryptophan Steal right here, I'm going to give you a lot more information here in a minute that explains that. I like to define depression really simply, okay? Depression, it's you think of depression as a hole in the ground or a dent. Something's not at the same level, it's a lower level. Well, let's just put it in a simpler words. It's a lower level of brain function. That's what depression is. No more, no less. You can have depression when your brain has worked so fast that it burns out, and you can have depression because your brain isn't working hard enough. There's depression on both sides of the curve, and we really only feel healthy in the middle. So again, this is an MRI functional of someone who's depressed. They don't feel good, and here's a non-depressed person. The difference is the level of activation. A low level of activation, a depression in the brain, normal level of activation, not depressed. And so we know from this research that inflammation is a huge player in the development of depression. This has been known for some time. I'm hoping that this video gives you the exact reasons why because that's what I believe I've discovered, and what I'm sharing this with you for is that the tryptophan steal is the real underlying mechanism why we get depressed, and why depression comes when we're inflamed, stressed out, or have blood sugar swings and low blood sugar. So here's the same chart. Here we go. So again, inflammation, cortisol, and low blood sugar turn on a big vacuum cleaner and suck tryptophan away from making serotonin and melatonin. Now remember, there was only 1 or 2% of tryptophan available for this in the beginning, and that's not a lot to lose. So if you lose 50% of your tryptophan that was going for the feel-good pathway is now going the kynurenine pathway, now you have 0.5% of tryptophan available, or maybe you have 0.1% available to make serotonin and melatonin. I mean, I see this all the time. And the big issue with this whole process is we've got to kind of read what the body's trying to do. What the body's attempting to accomplish by stealing tryptophan from the production of neurotransmitters that make you feel good, the tryptophan is being used to make vitamin B3, which helps the body make NAD, which helps keep cells alive. I hopefully will make a video soon to talk about NAD itself. It's a phenomenal compound. It's a cofactor in methylation reactions in the COMT and MAOA pathways and the histamine pathways. They're injecting NAD into mice who are 22 months old. They have old muscles for mice, and they inject NAD and they look under the microscope and their muscles reverse the aging process to a mouse that's like 6 months old. Just one vitamin, one nutrient. So there's something huge about NAD, and our body knows this too. So under stress, under blood sugar stress, under inflammatory stress, it's going to do everything it can to make as much NAD as possible to protect itself from losing cells. Okay, so we'll talk about that more next time, maybe when we do a NAD video. But I want to just point this out. This is the tryptophan steal. Okay, tryptophan is being stolen by these two enzymes, TDO and IDO, and it's not being stolen because the body's doing something wrong. It's just trying to survive a stressful situation. So this is why stress makes us depressed. It doesn't matter what kind of stress. It could be an infection, a food allergy, celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's. I mean, there's 1,000 things that can irritate your immune system. That's enough to do it. It could be uncontrolled diabetes. It could be hypoglycemia or juvenile type 1 diabetes. It could be skipping meals or having a high carbohydrate junk food diet that swings your blood sugar up and down and makes your body make a ton of glucagon. That could do it. Or it could just be a bad relationship, a bad job, a death in the family, a new baby, anything that raises cortisol is also going to, if the cortisol doesn't get fixed, it's going to suck tryptophan and steal it away from making things that make you feel good. So stress makes us depressed. Here's the evidence why. Last thing I want to show you is some organic acid tests. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this tonight. I just want you to see that we do a lot of organic acid testing with patients. It's very valuable when there's neurological issues and all kinds of health challenges. But this is showing you that the serotonin level is in the lower quartile, and the quinolinic acid ratio is elevated slightly from the serotonin. So you're kind of seeing the body sacrificing serotonin, and in fact it's making even more quinolinic and kynurenic acid. So you're looking at the body doing the tryptophan steal on paper. Okay, serotonin's low, quinolinic and kynurenine elevated, and you can see that pushes the ratio way outside of the range. So low-ish, not completely low, but low-ish serotonin compared to quinolinic is evidence of the tryptophan steal. And high ratio shows bodies destroying tryptophan to make more vitamin B3. I mean, it doesn't feel good when this is happening, but you got to understand, your body's perfect. It never makes mistakes. So it's triaging with the resources it has to give you the best end result, which is, not having neurons die and not having oxidative stress overwhelm your body. You may not feel good, but at least you're better off making NAD, I'd rather have NAD and feel bad than have no NAD and feel good for a little while before I get really sick, okay? Your body knows that. Now here's another test. It's a lot more serious. So the first patient I showed you, more mild symptoms and a more mild issue. But now you're seeing someone with some real severe tryptophan steal going on. This is one of the highest tests I've ever seen. You can see that their dopamine is significantly elevated over their epinephrine and norepi. So they're in a catecholamine dominant state. All right, anxiety, worry and panic, high blood pressure, heart palpitations, insomnia, sleep issues, chronic pain. These are all common symptoms in this patient group. And then that skews this ratio off. But then look at the serotonin. It's 0.03, practically zero. Okay, very low serotonin, and even higher quinolinic acid than we saw in the previous test. So you divide these out and you get a very high ratio. And so I show this to you not to diagnose anyone or anything like that, but just to say, look, we can take the science of the tryptophan steal. You can do an organic acid test, and you can see the evidence of it right in front of you. And once we know that, we know why we're getting depressed. We know why people are dealing with horrible sleep and all these, low libido, chronic fatigue-like symptoms. And we know that the body's doing it for a reason. It's doing it because it needs more tryptophan. It's got too much inflammation, too much stress. And when we fix the stress, we balance blood sugar, we reduce inflammation, and we give the body a good source of NAD, that really does help balance these things out. So I hope this video gives you some ideas about depression. The tryptophan steal is it's a real deal. It's happening to people who are depressed, and there's a reason why. So in your endeavors to get healthy and get better, just share this video with your friends. And again, I would encourage you to check out the article with this at beyondmthfr.com. And thank you again for your time and attention. Thank you so much for watching this video and sharing it with your friends and family. I personally believe, as I'm sure you do as well, that educating ourselves about what it truly means to be healthy is the only way we're going to change healthcare. I have created a website as a resource for you. To take advantage of this information, navigate to www.beyondmthfr.com and take a look around. In addition to blogs and articles I have written, you will find a tab on the menu labeled Protocols. It is a growing list of tools that I use in my office to help support my patients. You will find background information on common health conditions. You will find a detailed supplement protocol, and you will find dietary advice to support the body's natural healing process. You will also have access to order recommended supplements at a discounted rate and have them shipped to your front door. I'm giving you the tools that I use and practice every day to help you overcome health challenges and live a happier, healthier life. I have done my best to give you that information, and you will find it on these protocol pages. If you are looking for more help than simply what supplements should you take or what diet should you follow, I'm inviting you to come to Boise and see me. Let me and my team and my staff take care of you. We have patients coming from all over the country and all over the area on a regular basis, and there's room for you too. Now, if coming all this way to Boise is too big of a commitment, then please pick up the phone or email my office. We can work together from a distance.